Hello and welcome to Say What You're Saying with John Panichella. I am your host. I am very excited today. I've wanted to put this podcast together for a long time. I have recorded and filmed podcasts years ago that never came out, and I am so lucky to be working on this with some of my closest friends right now. Shout out to Spirinity Productions for putting this together. Today, I am joined by one of my close friends, Colleen Broomall, who is an industry veteran. She has done so many things. I have looked up to you for so long. You've been a mentor to me, and I am excited to dive into your career, talk about what you've been through, what you've been working on, and how we met. I think we can kind of start with where we met, which I take this as we met on the red carpets. I don't remember if you were working at Popstar or if you had just started YSB Now at that point.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure we officially met for the first time at the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Award, walkthrough.
Yes.
And basically for every year for the Kids' Choice Awards, they do a tour so you can look at the seating charts, and they have different kids from Nickelodeon do it each year. And I really think that's where we met for the first time. And then we went to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Of course we did. Nothing has changed.
I was like, I'll drive you home. We went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and that was great. And that was the start of a amazing friendship. And you're one of my closest friends too. But the funniest thing is I had known you for a couple months, and then I realized that we'd actually met on the internet a few years before that.
Gosh.
So I was editor-in-chief at Popstar magazine, and if you're listening to this, maybe you haven't seen John before, but John fully had a beard when he was 15 years old and looked like a 35-year-old man.
This is
at
true.
least in
This
his
is true.
profile picture. And so at Popstar, Natasha, who you also know, and I hope she'll be a guest on the show too, we were kind of really early adapters of social media and YouTube, and understanding that the future of media was in the digital space.
Right.
And so we really loved interacting with the fans of the magazine and the different fans. And I had a column in the magazine that was it's called On the Radar. And so it was up and coming people, because all those other magazines only covered the huge stars.
Exactly.
And I thought that was so boring, you know? And so John would, I realize now it's John, would send these DMs and be like, my client did this new cover, check it out. And I'm like, and it was Dylan, who's your best friend and roommate. And I was like, keep going for it, But if I had known that you were fully 15 years old when you sent me this, I would have absolutely put him in the magazine, because it's I love a hustler. I love someone.
I was hustling,
that's just how I was. When I was in high school, I kind of, didn't really fit into what people in high school were wanting to do. And, I was always just trying new things and trying to see what I could do to get, one step closer to my dreams. And so I think that was a couple months into knowing each other that I was like, hold on. Almost like you didn't want to tell me because you were embarrassed. But
I was fully embarrassed.
Exactly.
1000%.
I knew exactly who you were. And I was like, that is
embarrassing.
Just hilarious.
And I love that you told that story on this podcast. Thank you for that. But yeah, I was hustling at 15. I created a blog when I was 15 years old, and I grew that to 1 million readers a month. And I was managing my best friend Dylan, who's running audio for this now. And I loved what you guys were doing at Popstar, and I would reach out. And for some reason, I was great at what I did, but I thought that having a goatee at 15 and 16 was the right choice, and it was not. But I love that you remember me from that. And I want to talk about Popstar in a little bit, but I want to go way back, because Colleen started in the industry as an actress. So can you tell us about that and what drove you into acting as a child?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you can call a 2-month-old baby an actress, you know. But basically, I'm the youngest of 4 kids and grew up right outside of Manhattan. And
East Coast.
Yeah. And so, very much people kind of in that area, a lot of them were involved in entertainment, I guess, even though my mom was a stay-at-home mom, even though she has a master's degree in psychology. And my dad was an engineer, so they had nothing to do with the industry whatsoever. And people would always go up to them in the grocery store, things like that, and say, oh my God, your kids are beautiful. You should put them in modeling and acting. And they're like, thanks, but that's not, we don't know anything about that. So my brothers, but then one day they were like, wow, how are we going to pay for, we don't want our kids paying off student loans till they're 40 we did, because we were all 2 to 3 years apart. So before I was born, my brothers and sisters started doing modeling around New York City, commercials and stuff like that. And when I was 2 months old, they were casting for Meg Ryan's daughter on the soap opera As the World Turns. And I think, I was only 2 months old and I went in, and I think the audition was to sort of see like how the baby would do when the mother leaves the room. And I was just chilling, So I got that, and obviously I have no recollection of it because I was in diapers. But it ended up becoming this like career, you know what I mean? From when I was a kid, like a lot of commercials, a lot of TV, but my parents really treated it like it was like extracurricular activity. You know what I mean? Like soccer or Girl Scouts.
Kind of a good way to look at it. I think a lot of people get caught up in that.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really good way to frame it for you as a kid, especially to have like a healthy relationship with acting.
Yeah, and there was no talk of like money or anything like that. And then when I started grammar school, it was like, one, I was on the soap opera still every so often.
Wow, that's
Two,
amazing.
I was on this Kicks commercial that was airing nonstop. And people would come up to me in the hallways and like ask how much money I made and things like that. And I started to notice, I'm like, and I was probably like 6 years old, and I was like, this is so weird. Like, people automatically like me before they even know me because I'm on TV. That was a really weird
How
thing
did you handle that at 6 years old? Like, what did you think
I
back
just
then?
remember thinking that was weird. And I came home from school and I told my mom that my art teacher, Mrs. Kriegel, only likes me because I'm on TV. So I was forced into retirement at the age of like 6.
Oh my gosh. Also, do you want us to bleep any names?
What's that?
Do you want us to bleep out any?
No, of course
I love
not.
it. Say what you're saying.
And and so I do think that being in the industry in that small way really gave me a unique perspective of what these young actors and young artists and the pressure that they're under, and I dealt with it in like the most tiniest microscopic way versus somebody who's like starring on a Disney show,
right?
And so but my mom always said, you could take the kid out of the business, you can't take the business out of the kid.
Absolutely not.
And then when I was a freshman in college, I wrote just a general email to this magazine that had just launched. They ended up being about 20 minutes where I grew up, 20 minutes away from where I grew up in New Jersey. So it wasn't like having to commute into the city. I was their very first intern. And it was like for the first time I found something that I loved.
Okay.
I never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. Like everyone said I want to be a doctor, a teacher. And it was like everything just felt so great. And I loved it so much. And just everything was falling into place. Working in a teen magazine was really unique because I got a glimpse into like the film world, a glimpse into how the music industry works, like how the journalism. So it gave me like a nice skill set of all the different, different kinds of media that there was to be a part of. And then I just got really, really lucky because this woman, Heidi Hurst, shout out, she's definitely not listening to this, but no, she is, because this is the #1 podcast. But she gave me just really amazing opportunities and chances where I was like going to photo shoots and doing interviews. And when I went back to college for my sophomore year of college, she actually became the executive editor of Tiger Beat and Bob. Moved to LA, and then she's like, so bad news, I'm moving to LA. Good news, you're going to be like the East Coast editor of Tiger Beat and Bob.
How old were you at this point?
I was 18.
Insane.
Yeah.
That is insanity.
And then, or I might have been 19, but it was amazing. Like I would literally have this like full college experience at University of Delaware. And maybe once every couple weeks, I'd drive to New York City to interview like Pharrell or Usher.
Ridiculous.
So, the teen magazine stuff really just fell into place naturally. And it's, I love it and I'll always love it.
It's crazy that you say like a teen magazine and then interviewing Pharrell and Usher, because I feel like that is a completely different landscape of like what teen media means today. Like teen media is not interviewing mainstream stars anymore. Like that's not happening. And I would love to kind of get your take on what you've seen change in teen media over these years and why you think that change is happening.
So basically back in, I loved TRL when I was in high school.
My favorite show.
Voted for my favorite celebrities. And, but MTV and Top 40 Radio and teen magazines were the gatekeepers.
Okay.
right? For any up and coming actor or singer or what have you, you know, the combination of those three things. And with the advent of social media, it kind of put the power back into the hands of the creators or the artists, you know? And it's really an amazing thing because you can really control your own destiny, you know? At the same time, though, there's just so many people and so much content. And so it's like there's no stars anymore.
Everyone's famous. Everyone's famous to a degree.
And you know, I think that in kind of the era of print media, it was like, okay, like an act would become huge and it'd be like, all right, awesome. Like, you know, the Jonas Brothers are going to keep this going for us. And then like, okay, Twilight would come out, you know, so there'd be like things that would keep it going. And now it's just, there isn't any star that's like strong enough to like fully support the teen media machine.
Yeah.
And additionally, as everyone knows, everyone's getting their content about celebrities from social media.
Yeah, like, directly from the source, from celebrity themselves. So that changes a lot too. But it is interesting. I just miss that cultural phenomenon of how things would blow up. You mentioned Twilight. Like that was everything. Jersey Shore was everything when that came out. Those were moments that I can distinctly remember.
Yeah.
And I think we still see that occasionally. Like we have Olivia Rodrigo right now. I think she's having a moment. I think Billie Eilish had a moment as well. But it is a lot less often than it used to be. So who would you say though were some of the people that you did interview back in this time when you were doing that? Like,
you know,
who was the teen media covering back then?
Like again, you know, I started in 2001, 2002, right?
What a great time to be doing that too.
So at that time you were sort of on the end of the Britney and NSYNC era, so like an Aaron Carter and those kind of people. But one thing that's super funny that people don't realize is like in 2002, 2003, the people on the cover of Tiger Beat and Bop were like Good Charlotte, Johnny Depp, Eminem, 50 Cent.
That's
like,
crazy.
That's who was like the popular,
that's
you know what
crazy.
I mean? And then, so it's just so funny to like look back at that time. And of course, like Hilary Duff, who's so sweet and lovely. And I ran into her recently. And
I love that.
That's fun too. But then, you know, of course, Disney, like you had High School Musical, Hannah Montana.
Huge.
And so at that point, I had just graduated from college, moved out to LA, and like it was season 1 Hannah Montana, like went to the set and Billy Ray Cyrus is like showing me his dressing room with Miley and like, you know, High School Musical that had aired, but like it aired on Disney Channel and there was no hype around it. And it was just like, it was just Disney was like, not doing anything. Crazy. It was like Disney was on the outs of like the That's So Raven, Lizzie McGuire years. So there was this huge gap. And then suddenly it was all Disney all the time, just like this crazy machine.
Yeah, I remember that era and how that was just everything that you saw. It was lunchboxes, backpacks, notebooks. Like everyone was talking about that.
And like, remember, let's think about this too, is it's like culture has shifted so much, right? So back then it was like Tiger Beat was the only magazine covering the High School Musical kids. And then Zac Efron did Hairspray and was on the cover of Rolling Stone. But it's like the teen magazines were sort of like the little, you know, moment that you're getting ready to become a huge star, like Justin Bieber, you know what I mean? Now it's shifted because these mainstream media outlets see the numbers on social media, and so they're covering these stars before. So it's like they're not gonna want to do an interview with like a Tiger Beat, you know?
That's crazy. I didn't think of that, but that makes so much sense. Yeah, the social media game really changed everything. I think seeing the numbers, like you said, makes these outlets want to cover them because they know they're going to share it and they're going to get the clicks for it. I want to keep diving into your career though. After Tiger Beat, you went to Popstar, is that correct? Or was there...
So basically it's interesting because there's like a couple year gap like in my career, and I used to like not like feel as comfortable talking about it, but basically when I was 15, my brother died in a car accident. And so like teen magazines and, you know, TRL was like my escape, you know? And so, you know, getting that success in like the magazine world, and like I just felt like I was making my parents proud and making my brother proud and everything like that. And then my other brother was bipolar. So I was at Tiger Beat for gosh, like not even a year in the LA offices, and my brother took his life. And so after that happened, it was like, how do I even move on with anything? You know, it's just like, I always kind of deal with things with humor, but it's like, I was like, all right, I'm 22. Let's see. I was a soap opera star. I did magazine editing, which was my other dream. And I was a waitress at Friendly's, which was my other dream. So
shout out Friendly's, by the way.
Yeah, the best.
Love that.
So I'm like, well, what's there to do next?
Yeah.
I'm 22. But in a serious way, it was sort of like, what is this world? Like, what am I even living for? And it was a really challenging time. And I decided to, resign from the magazine, which they were the Tiger Beat team, Scott Laufer, whose dad created Tiger Beat and Bop, and he's the reason why all those magazines exist. And Lisa Coble, who's like a mentor to me, and she's amazing. They could not have been more wonderful and kind during that period. And I moved back east, and I was substitute teaching. I was like, this was like during the recession, but I just really didn't know, I had no idea of like what I wanted to do next at all. And I'm like, you have to realize too, it's like my brother had just killed himself, and I have to go ask like Jake T. Austin and David Henry like about their first kiss. Like, get me out of here.
It was not
my
time
God.
for, like, you needed a break from that. It was not like, this is not
awful.
happening right now.
And so, I still did a little bit here and there for like Tiger Beat and different teen magazines, but not like in a full-time sense.
Got it. Okay.
And then weirdly enough, the acting thing comes back into play because my mom always kept my membership in SAG active should like anything kind of pop up. And I'd moved home, and I was like, they were, you could do like, I could do SAG background work, like be an extra, but it was really good money. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so like you could work like 3 days on something and make like $1,500. Exactly, and this is like almost 20 years ago. And like you did nothing, like
the background work is the way to go.
The actors were just so funny to watch because they really were like, this is my moment, and it was a riot.
I do.
So
I mean, yes,
I
love
like
the background acting community. Shout out to you. Keep grinding. But I do know the kind of personality you're talking about, where it's like, oh, I'm a star, like, and they think they're having their moment, and I think it is amazing. So I love that you got to witness that. I feel like you can have a whole kind of story about that too.
Yeah. So basically this movie about a girls' high school basketball team, was basically casting kind of for like the core background, right? So I was like, all right, I'm good at basketball. And by the way, basketball growing up with my brothers and my sister was everything. I was the only girls on the boys team. My dad was coached everything. I just lived for basketball. Like my brothers, I would like, what do you want for Christmas? Nets tickets. Like my brothers would take me to games. It was like a really big thing for us. It still is. I love basketball.
Still a basketball.
I love basketball so much. And so I thought, okay, like I'm going to go to this because I've always wanted to like work on a basketball movie, but also I could probably be like one of the background players on the team and like work for a few weeks and make some good money. So as it turns out, and by the way, I was leaving the like open casting. So there's so many people who are like just terrible at basketball, and it was a riot. But my brother's favorite song came on the radio, and it was like, I just really felt them in that moment. My brother, Jim, would always say, I love the radio because like you never know what song is going to come on next. It's always a surprise. And there's just the craziest moments where like their favorite songs come on. So as it turned out, they were casting for one more speaking role in this movie. And so I got it. And it was awesome. Like Sam Rockwell was in it, Emma Roberts, Margot Martingale, who's amazing.
That's amazing.
And it was such a blast to work on. And then it just ended up premiering at Sundance just a few months later. And the director, my close friend, Casey Stroh, she was in High School Musical, the Pop and Lock girl. She's the best. And she was like my best friend in LA. And her family's amazing. And she's from Salt Lake City. So they have a condo in like Park City. Her family does. So she's like, come on, like come out here. Like it's going to be awesome. Like, it's
just crazy how those things like line up.
And the director was like, after I finished like everything, when I knew that it was going to premiere at Sundance, I was friends with the director on Facebook, and I just said, I just wanted to let you know, like, this was such an incredible experience. And I like shared with him like about my brothers and stuff. And he was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. He's like, but you were amazing in the movie and this and that. So the trailer comes out, like I'm in the trailer and everything, and go to Sundance. And then the movie gets acquired by Lionsgate.
Okay.
And, you know, everyone I know, like in the industry was like, Colleen, that doesn't happen. Like, you don't randomly show up for an audition and then like get booked in this movie with like Academy Award winners. Like,
right.
and then it premieres at Sundance, you know? And so I was like, all right, like, well, maybe this is a sign I should do acting again. And so, I went back to LA, and it was good to, I think, to do that because I needed that closure in the sense of like, I left so abruptly, you know, it just didn't feel like I needed to leave kind of more so on my own terms, you know? So I went to LA and I signed with like the first manager who wanted to sign me. I did not know anything about this acting industry because I was a baby when I did it. And my mom, like, you know, after I started grammar school, she went to her career. Right. So like, no,
so you like had no real experience.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was also before like the internet and social media gave so much help to like actors so it's all and things like that. It was right before that.
How did you find the person?
I think I just like sent my like headshots out.
Okay.
Like in regular mail, you know, and that was the first one who wrote to me. But I go to LA and like got like no auditions. And then I was like, okay, this person's like not working out. And I signed with like a good agent because, you know, and I started going out on auditions, but I was like, this is such a waste of time. Like, I'm driving an hour to go have like one line in How I Met Your Mother. Like, and then I would be obsessed with like, oh my God, are they going to call? Like, did I get it? And it just was like, but the great thing about that was I'm so glad that I tried it again. Cause I feel like if I hadn't gone back and done acting again, I would always wonder like what could have been or felt like I wasn't, you know, I should have done that.
Yeah.
You know?
Like you gave it a shot. You put energy towards it.
And then right around that time, I started freelancing for Popstar magazine. And Max Schneider it was like he had just come out in this Nickelodeon show and movie, How to Rock.
Yes.
With Kiki Palmer.
Kiki Palmer was in that.
And they sent me to go do like this little interview mini shoot with him. And I really didn't want to go. Like it was, I hadn't really been in that space in a long time. And he was amazing and so awesome.
Yeah,
so
he's always been great.
And I'm so glad that he's really established himself as such an amazing artist.
He's always been super nice when I've interviewed him. And it's cool to see his career kind of
and it's funny because my roommate Brandon is like working with him on music now, which is a funny full circle moment. But I was like, wow, like I remember why I love this. You know, like I feel like I kind of had healed a little bit and had more positive about things.
And this was in LA. You were back in LA when
it was in LA, and I was freelancing for Popstar, which is based on the East Coast. And at this point, I was like, I feel like I'm rambling a lot.
No, you're good.
Okay.
You're good. This is great.
I'm just trying to like.
Your story is so long, and there's so much to talk about.
I just haven't talked about this. I think we're like 200 minutes. Okay, we need 400 minutes.
No, this is great, and I think that people are like you're saying, oh, people are like, yeah, this doesn't happen to people, but it does happen to Colleen. That's why I'm never shocked when you tell me these stories. I just feel like you have such an interesting life, and people gravitate towards you, and like you walk into a room, and people will dump their problems on you. They'll become your best friend, and then they'll offer you a movie role. Like all of those things will happen in the same night. So I'm never surprised by these stories. But I'm sure listeners are like, wait, does this never happen? No, it really doesn't, unless you're Colleen, because there's just something about you. I just remember, unrelated, but I remember being like in Ubers with you, and like the driver is just like crying and telling you stories about their life, and we get out and you're like, why did they do this? And I'm like, I don't know, like you're there for them. And it's just crazy how people gravitate towards you. So
thank you, John.
I think that this does happen to you. So all of this sounds very normal to me so far.
Yeah. So at that point I was back in LA, and I think been back in LA for maybe 2 years or so, but my sister had her was pregnant with her second baby, and I had planned to be home for the birth for a couple weeks, and then she had the baby early, and I was so sad I wasn't there for it. And I was like, you know, I think I'm ready to go back east. And so it's so crazy how when things are supposed to be happening for you, they're just going to happen. That's something I've learned along the way. And so I just said, yeah, you know what? I think I'm ready to move back east. I think I'm going to start looking for jobs. And I get this phone call, and it's from another mentor of mine named Karen Williams. She was like the original editor of all those teen magazines, Rockstar, like has handwritten notes from Brad Pitt saying, thank you for doing my first photo shoot with me. And she's an icon, and I love her. And she's like, Colleen, she was like, so Popstar magazine got acquired. She was like, I know the company that bought them. They're a little weird. But
I love these stories.
But
so
they
yes.
like called me and asked if I had any, and she was like, are you interested in this? And I'm like, oh my God. And so the role was editor-in-chief at Popstar magazine.
Crazy.
Popstar was the only teen magazine, by the way. I had never done anything within a full-time basis.
Okay.
And I always loved it. I always thought it was a really, I don't know, I really enjoyed the magazine.
Yeah.
And so this company was 15 minutes from my parents' house in New Jersey, in Paramus, New Jersey. I like, what are the chances of that? And so
like you can't make that up.
Yeah. And so, the other thing too is that I got the job as the editor-in-chief of Popstar magazine, and I had only had maybe like 8 months of experience full-time in a magazine. Like,
I'm not surprised by this, but like,
because so much of what I did
this
was
does not
freelance.
happen to anyone who wants to get into the industry. This is not normal. This does not happen. That's amazing though. The fact that you wanted to move back to New Jersey, this job comes up, like clearly this was meant to be. And so how old are you at this point when this opportunity comes up?
So that was 2012. So I was like 29.
Okay.
No, I think I was 28.
Okay.
28 or 29. And I think they had lied about the numbers, like Popstar. But by the way, Natasha, who I
love
met
Natasha.
in LA.
Natasha, come on the podcast.
Yeah.
Would love to chat with you.
Natasha was a student. She was going to college in New York, and she called me and she was like, "Have you heard anything?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Natasha, I wanted to." And I only met her like once, and she was in high school.
That's
and
crazy.
People would always say, "You have to meet Colleen." Oh, you have to meet Natasha.
Yeah.
And so I was gonna call her to see if she wanted to take over this job I was doing at the time in PR, but I didn't realize she was like legitimately in high school. Like she couldn't do that. But she had happened to call me the same day I was thinking of calling her, and she was like, does Popstar owe you money? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, they owe me money too. I'm like, but come work with, like, she's like, I'm going to college in New York. I'm like, this is perfect. Like we can do this together. And yeah, she became like, she's my little sister.
That's
still.
an iconic duo. Like that is a crazy story to hear how
we
you guys
just had
came together
so
like
much
that.
fun. It was great.
Yeah,
and,
you guys are an awesome team.
Yeah, and so what's interesting is like, from our understanding, it was like they'd been inflating like the sales and things like that. So it was sort of like, all right, like we got to figure it out what we're doing to like keep this in the game, and I had been, again, like not a full-time presence in the teen magazine world for several years at that point. So like the first day I was there, I like wrote out this huge email and I was like, yes, I'm the new editor-in-chief, and this is my first big editorial decision. I'm starting a new column called Popstar Paws, and every month the mascot of Popstar magazine, Punky, will round up the celebrity dogs who put the wagon swag.
Oh my gosh.
And
Mind you, Punky is Colleen's dog. So that is incredible. I just love that is your take, but also that's fun and no one's thinking of that and you're laughing about it, but that probably made people interested in the magazine.
Well, I think that it was funny because from that email I could tell like what reps and publicists, whatever, that would got it. Like, okay,
yeah, like,
this
who's
girl's
cool to
funny.
work with.
She's not,
exactly.
She knows that we're not like, doing brain surgery. Like, this is a fun thing and let's have fun with it. And let's try to make an impact on kids and make them feel more positive about, what's going on in the world and things around them.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Now, I've heard so many stories from your Popstar days. Are there any fun, crazy moments that you can share?
Oh my God.
That you think, I mean, there's so many funny stories. I just don't know what you want to share, but
I mean, like, is there one you want me to tell?
the one with the trash and you were like looking through the trash.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, so that actually happened at Tiger Beat.
Okay, that was Tiger Beat
magazine.
Okay.
So one of my jobs at Tiger Beat was to go through the reader mail, right? Now, I really want all the kids to feel like their stuff is being read and everything like that. So I would really go through it all and send kids little things. Also save the crazy emails. Like this woman thought she was married to David Caruso. And this, the funny voicemails and things like that. But it was a contest to win. I just started there full time, and it was a contest to win Zac Efron's phone. And it was on the cover of the magazine, and I was like, because they, you would sell the magazine based on cover lines like that. And I remember being like, I think this is false advertising because it's not Zac Efron's phone. And the little girls out there are going to think they're getting his phone. It's actually a free phone that you got from some electronics company that he literally just signed,
Got it. Okay.
So Oh my God, this was like that was the summer right after High School Musical. So it
Crazy
was
time to be advertising
absolutely bonkers. You know what I mean? And we had these garbage bags full of these Zac Efron's phone envelopes. Sorry for my language. Now, I should also add here that our offices were in the CNN building, okay? So you have world leaders coming in there. Like, this was a very, very high level security
Why
building.
was Tiger Beat in that building?
I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of...
I don't understand.
Yeah. And so, but it was fun because you'd like randomly see like Larry King would have like the zoo animals on. And so there'd be like zebras walking through the lobby, you know?
You can't make it up.
So in the Tiger Beat offices, there was this one room that basically like nothing was in, and it was a room to basically do photo shoots for someone who like wasn't that big yet. You know, like they weren't big enough to have their own shoot.
Right.
One of those people was Rihanna.
Oh my gosh, that is insane.
And I loved her immediately because her record label was like, she's on this diet, like you need to go pick up these foods, like, and it's Tiger Beat, like we're like making Totino's pizza rolls, you know? But someone went and picked up this like fancy food, and Rihanna comes in eating like flaming hot Cheetos at like 10 in the morning, and I'm like, okay, I like her. She's gonna do great. But anyway, the Jonas Brothers had been dropped from Sony or Columbia Records at this point. They hadn't signed to Hollywood Records yet.
Okay.
So we're talking about a time where they were. Now they have said that they almost gave up. But so again, they weren't big enough to have their own photo shoot, which is like ironic now that you think about it, because they kept those teen magazines in business for years.
Literally, yeah.
And so Lisa, my boss, was like, all right, Colleen, like Jonas Brothers are coming in 2 weeks. Like we got to get all those Zac Efron's phone garbage bags out of here. And I'm like, oh yeah, I know. I'll handle it, you know? But like, remember, there's no dumpster at the CNN building because it's so heavily secured. So, all right, Colleen, like they're coming in 10 days. Like, all right, you know what I mean? And then suddenly it was like, Colleen, they're coming tomorrow. Like, we need to get these garbage bags out of here. And I'm like, okay. So I get the photo editor, Nicole. We're like the last two people in the building that day, or in the office that day. And I'm like, hey, you got to help me bring these garbage bags out, you know? So we come, she's from Jersey too. And we come walking out with these giant trash bags, like full of these Zac Efron's phone, like entries. And I'm like, yeah, there's a dumpster. Like, there's definitely a dumpster. I think there's one in the parking garage. And she was like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely sure. Like, there's definitely dumpsters, at least in the parking garage. So we go out and we're like, there's no dumpsters. So we just like put them next to this like small trash can in the parking garage of the CNN building. So the next morning, I'm obviously like late for work because that's, you know, I would never get there. I mean, it was pretty late back. And I also would stay late, so I wouldn't have to go in. And Mom, I was very responsible. And so Nicole calls me, and she was like, Colleen, like, I don't know what you did, but like my key card didn't work to like get in the parking garage. And like, I don't know if they're going to call the owner. Like, this is like a lot of problems. Like, no, just tell them it's all my fault. Like, let's tell them it's all my fault, you know? And so I pull up, and the guys in the parking garage who, like, I knew they are the best. They're like, Colleen, why did you have all that garbage? What did you do? And I was like, oh man, what happened? They're like, well, the security thing got like tagged because they're like there's these trash bags in this parking garage. Like, is this a terroristic threat? And a bomb squad came and opens the garbage bags, these giant trash bags, and finds millions of Zac Efron's cell phone contacts.
Like, how does this happen?
And then they pull up this video, and they're showing the guys that work in the parking lot, and they're like, oh, that's just Colleen. What did she get up to today? You know what I mean? So, oh my God. So that was crazy. And then fast forward, we pick the winner. And what happens a couple months later? Get a letter. And she goes, I thought this was going to be Zac Efron's cell phone. But there was no cell phone numbers in it. She thought that, and I was right. She thought
she
that
was like trying to get like Vanessa Hudgens number or something.
Yeah, she thought that she was going to literally win Zac Efron's cell phone, which I said was going to happen.
Smart, yeah, good call out.
She turned it on and expected to find like everyone's phone numbers, and it was literally just like this crappy phone with nothing on it. It wasn't even like a good phone. No T-Mobile sidekick happening there.
I love that. I love that story so much. Thank you for sharing that. I feel like we could talk about Popstar and Tiger Beat for hours, but I do want to fast forward to a little bit more of your current stuff.
Yeah.
So you created YSB Now, which stands
Yep.
for You're So Beautiful Now, which is an amazing Gen Z platform. It's honestly one of my favorite platforms for that demographic. Can you talk a little bit about that and starting that with Natasha, and what that meant to you to do that at that time?
Yeah. So, basically just, I should say first, like during the pandemic, we kind of put YSB Now on hold, on hiatus. Before I get into this, I'll just explain because it's like, we would do all these in-person photo shoots and charity events and interviews. And, during COVID, it was like over Zoom and it just like wasn't the same.
It's not the same.
But then things shifted. Like, it's so different now. Like you used to be, like if you got invited to a Disney premiere red carpet, you could go and you'd be like, all right, we're guaranteed to get this many YouTube views and make this much money off that. And now it's like, there's just so much content out there that we're like, all right, we need to hit pause, work on kind of our own stuff, and then like figure out exactly what we want this to be and how we want to do it. But basically, during our time at Popstar was really the proliferation of social media and like kids getting cell phones. When I was a kid, my parents like wouldn't let me watch certain shows, but when a kid's got a smartphone, they have access to whatever there might be. So, and then you have all those like photoshopping apps. So and Natasha and I both really saw such a drastic change in kids' self-esteem just by interacting with them on social media and that sort of thing. And then the other thing was just, the concept of a teen magazine like was so antiquated in the sense that it was so corny and these kids are so much smarter than that and they deserve so much more than that, And so we would do these like really awesome interviews with somebody and then it would just get like turned into something corny, And so Natasha and I were like, we want to do something different, And so I was lucky enough to meet kind of a group of people and they're like, Popstar is you and Natasha. Like, so why don't we just like, because initially I think they wanted to talk about acquiring Popstar and then they're like, well, if we just get Colleen and Natasha, like that's Popstar and like they can make it their own thing. And so they took a leap of faith on us and we really took a leap of faith on ourselves, and because we went from running a magazine sold in 74 countries, 300 million YouTube views to 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
That's scary.
We were really lucky in the sense that there were so many people in the industry who like really and truly supported us so early on. Like, Lakeisha at Disney Channel, Lillian and Sharon at Hollywood Records. There's so many people like Pam Fisher from Abrams Artists. Now she's at a different management company, but there's so many people who like believed in what we were doing. And so, we just started doing these interviews like YSB Now. It stands for You're So Beautiful Now. And just really it's about loving yourself for who you are right now and not like, like when I get that designer bag or like when I lose 15 pounds, when I get my braces off, it's like just loving who you are for who you are in that moment. I think that really resonated, with a lot of people, but media was like changing so dramatically, and quickly, and we're never, kids are not going to be going to websites anymore. Number one. Number two, a website cannot stand on its own by advertising dollars unless they're like already established, like a TMZ or a New York Times. Now we were saying this like, gosh, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And now people are really starting to talk about it, which is so interesting. Like there was an article in the New Yorker yesterday. I think it was the New Yorker. It was like, is mass media extinct?
I saw that.
Yeah. And so
it's just funny because these are things that you and I talked about and you saw these trends years ago. And that's how you've been so successful to this day is because you predict the trends.
Yeah. And so, but what was really, I think, incredible, like, and again, Natasha and I came into it with so much passion, but things were just changing so much in that space that like we had just started like figuring out how to monetize it with like sponsored events. And then the COVID happened, but the thing too was I think, like during that time, Natasha and I have had a lot of conversations about this. And like, at least I can speak for myself and say that like, I based my self-worth on like the success of YSB Now, and like that's so not healthy. And so because YSB Now wasn't this like, you know, financial windfall where I'm like, let's go to Tahiti because we're making, you know, like it was really struggled. Like we were not getting paid.
Right. And
I don't think people realize that. Like
which is bizarre because it was a massive platform. I'm talking like the photo shoots you were putting out were extremely like high production value editorial photo shoots. I will always remember the one you did with Sky Jackson. That was
I love that one. And that was, by the way, like what was really fun about that was we really got to be creative, like in the sense that in Popstar and Tiger Beat and all those, it was like, hold up this backpack, like whereas we got to come up with these amazing themes and like produce and plan these
you were
photo
conceptualizing things. It wasn't happening in other teen media. I mean, I was working at J14 at the time and we were just not doing that.
And you guys would cover our shoots, which is crazy.
Exactly. We were not doing that kind of content, and I was pushing for that, but they just didn't want to invest in that kind of creative. And I think that YSB Now kind of led that forefront for teen media to say, no, you need to create original content because kids are consuming this anyway. Like they're consuming it directly from the celebrity. They need more than just a post about it. They need a photo shoot that they can't get anywhere besides what we created. And so I think you guys really led that, and it is crazy that you were not making money during that time because you were really pushing culture forward with what you guys were doing.
Oh my God, thank you so much, John.
It's true. Like I love YSB Now.
That means so much to me that you say that, because that was like, you know, I should say it is because it's on pause right now. It's not over.
It's not over. It's on pause.
It was really hard for me, like, not to feel like I failed or like you know what I mean?
Definitely.
And so to get that kind of like positive reinforcement, it means so much. But again, like you said, the photo shoot with Sky Jackson, like the photo shoot with Jenna Ortega, like those stars don't exist anymore. And so it's sort of like, well, how do we do that? Like, and make it make sense. How do we do that and have like an ROI on it?
Right.
You know? And so that's something that I think, you know, one thing that I said this a couple years ago as well is I'm like, you know, the future of media is not like exclusive articles. It's like somebody representing the platform, for instance, like a Joe Rogan or Dave Portnoy, which is obviously extremely different from YSB Now. But I think that there truly is a space for like Natasha and I to continue our interviews, like even in a podcast type form or a film form.
I think it would be amazing
because we've known like, you know, Laura Morano, Akira Kasser, Jojo Siwa, like we kind of watched them grow up and like supported them, and they know that we're really genuine. We're not kind of just there for clicks or anything like that. So I think in terms of like the future of YSB Now, like just as we're talking about it, I definitely would love to have us do some kind of like long form interview series and kind of put it there and like see where it goes with that, because that's like one thing that I truly think is missing, right? Is like even just before somebody was like, oh, like, yeah, when they do this on the Call Her Daddy podcast, it's like, well, yeah, you have so many like that, but who's there like giving positive messages and inspiring stories, you know what I mean? Like, and having genuinely real conversations. Like, it's kind of like, I don't know anyone that's doing that.
No, especially in this teen space. Like, it's just not happening.
And I do think too that we could age it up a little bit more, because like these kids are so much older now.
Exactly.
You know?
And I also think the form, like switching to a podcast format or long form content kind of naturally ages it up a little bit anyway. I think it's more sophisticated, and an older, like a slightly older audience will find that interesting. And also like imagine talking to these kids who we worked with when I was at J14, you're at Popstar, and they're older now, and you can kind of go back to those days and pick their brain now as they look back on their career trajectory.
Yeah, and
I think that's really interesting.
And I ran in, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but last weekend during the Grammys and all those events, like I could not turn one way without seeing, you know, them.
They're everywhere.
So many of them, and like they were so like, oh my God, Colleen, like, and knowing that like it, like.
You left an impact. They remembered you.
Yeah, like not even. I think it's more so like, wait, like we could still do this. Like we still,
of course,
you know, have these relationships and that kind of thing. But yeah, so basically, like when COVID ended, I started doing a lot of production. So like Wednesday, I'm going to fly out to NBA All-Star Weekend. I also joined the board of advisors for Ubiquitous, which is like mainly work with a lot of TikTokers and influencer marketing firm. And yeah, just doing a lot of stuff, but obviously like
Colleen's doing everything. You have no idea. Like I always have a joke with her. I'm like, where's Colleen? Like, where's Waldo? I have no idea where Colleen's at all the time. But I do because we have Find My Friends and I'm really happy about that because I never know where you are unless I check that app.
Yeah. People are like, how come you never post on social media? I think it's two things. One, because when I was doing YSB Nows and we were active, I was so in that it was like, ugh. And then
it's a flow.
Also now I just don't want people to know where I am because then they ask me to do things that I don't want to do.
No, you're always gone. I was telling you the other day, I was with Kyle Burgess. I saw him out and he was like, where's Colleen? He's like, I have no idea where she's at. I've been trying to like get in touch with her. I want to reach out, but like she's just never around. And of course I text you because we're right down the street from where we all are hanging out and where you live, but you are nowhere to be found. You're in Marina Del Rey going to Long Beach at 9:00 at night. And we're just like, all right, we'll catch her next time. But yeah, you've been doing a ton of things with events. You're working on a new like iteration of YSB Now potentially. What is next for you? Is this what you're focusing on? Do you see anything else in your future that you want to put time into?
Yeah.
Is acting ever coming back into your life?
I think one thing that I haven't done, which I just need to do, is I have so many ideas for like scripted films in that coming of age teen space, with like one in particular that has been on my mind that I've just been like shaping for like literally 15 years, you know? And so I just need to sit down and write it. Maybe there's like a fear of like not doing it, but I'm like, I think I just need to do it.
You have so much insight on that.
And just take like an hour each day to like write that out.
Yeah, you have so much insight on that. And I think that could help a lot of people actually too. I think with social media, people's like perception of fame and everyone's trying to reach that level, especially at such a young age. I think you have such a good insight on what that looks like that you could write a cool movie about that and kind of show what that looks like.
Thank you. Yeah, so I think, you know, doing more writing in a creative way, like I'm usually telling stories of the celebrities, but I think it's time to like tell my own story.
Yes.
And in that sense too, you know, I think again with like YSB Now, like I think Natasha and I like needed a break from it for a little while because it was like all we did for so long, and we just I think needed to step away and like find our talents and like things that we were successful at that wasn't dependent on you know, because the startup life is hard, and I think bringing, you know, back these like long form interviews with YSB Now could be such a really fun and cool thing, because I always would say like, you know, again, obviously you need to get views to make money, but my whole thing is like, I don't care if like one person watches it or a million people watch it. If like one kid out there can see this interview and like not feel as alone in the world or can feel inspired in some way, like that's all I care about. And maybe that's why YSB Now wasn't this like financial success, because I was like, we're making a difference, you know?
The message is important. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But I think that especially now, like there's just so much like darkness in the world, you know, like everyone feels like everyone is combative and just wants to fight with one another. And like, you know, you're different than me. Like, you know, you're that, you're this. And it's sort of like, I think that we can come together on, I think people can really come together on themes of like loving yourself and believing in yourself, because like we're a lot more similar than we think.
Yeah.
And again, like even with YSB Now, if we came out with like a podcast and, you know, post everything on YouTube or whatever it might be, even if it's one person watching it, you know, just feeling a little better about the world, like then I just think that that is so worth it.
Yeah, I mean, I love the positive message that YSB Now stands for, that's always stood for, and that you guys have always shared. So I'm a supporter of that. I do have one last question I have to ask you while you're here. Obviously, you have been working in media for so long, and you have stayed relevant for so long. You've moved and evolved with the trends. What do you think is next for teen media, for teen celebrity, social media fame? What does that look like? Does everyone become famous to their own niche, or does it go back to how it used to be at some point?
That's a really good question. It feels like we're at a point where like there's so much of everything everywhere and nothing matters, that I feel like it's time for things to matter again, you know? And I always say like the cream rises to the top. I think like in this industry, you always see the cream rise to the top, you know? And I think that in terms of like somebody getting more success than you, just if like, let's say I'm an aspiring actor or let's say I'm an aspiring singer and I'm like looking at what someone else is doing. It's like, you have to be patient with yourself and like know that you're not always going to have the answers. But I was thinking about this the other day. When I was in high school, like the 4 singers were Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Jessica Simpson, and Pink. And Pink was kind of like the misfit. Jessica Simpson was never at that level. And Britney was like the one. And Christina Aguilera was kind of like, on the outskirts a little bit.
Anti-hero, yeah.
But now it's like you look at all those girls and they're all killing it. Like Jessica Simpson has like $1 billion clothing line.
Yep.
I've bought it at Costco before.
Shout out Costco. Colleen's your biggest fan.
I'm obsessed with Costco. Pink is selling out stadiums. Britney is telling her story and telling her truth. And Christina is, doing a residency in Las Vegas.
Yeah, she's having a like resurgence of popularity.
So it's like you think about how people would see them, even Mandy Moore, like right with her acting career and This Is Us. So it's like, the cream rises to the top. And just because one thing is successful now and one thing isn't, doesn't mean that there's room and space for things to figure out, And I think right now in the next like year or so, things are going to start to settle. Because right now it's just too much. There's too much
happening.
Social media. There's too much social media platforms. There's too much streaming. It's just there's too much content.
Everything's oversaturated, no matter where you go.
Yeah, and so I think that it's gonna be like the survival, not of the fittest, but the survival of what is meaningful.
Yep. I love that. Well, Colleen, thank you so much for being my first guest. Again, I'm honored to have you here. You've inspired me. You've inspired a lot of people. I just think you're a hilarious person. I think that you're smart. I think you're witty. So this was really fun for me to do. I hope you had a good time kind of sharing your story. Would you like to plug your social media so we can follow you?
John, I don't post on social media.
Well, we can still follow you. Do you want to plug YSB Now to get ready for the next iteration?
Yes, YSB Now, Instagram, Twitter. I've been locked out of my personal Twitter for like 3 years because when I did the password recovery thing, I had AT&T. Forgot to tell them when I switched to T-Mobile. So I can't get into my Twitter, which is terrible.
Happens,
so I use YSB Now's Twitter.
Okay.
And then I'm always afraid I'm going to like favorite something about, the Real Housewives.
Yeah. Oh my God. For the YSB Now Twitter.
But yeah, and maybe I'll start doing some TikToks.
Get back on social media. People need to see you. You have a lot to share.
You're right. I think, I always feel like it's like corny to do that, but I'm going to start, tooting my horn.
I felt that for a long time. And I finally was, honestly, very recently, I was like, you know what? This is something that I can utilize to push my career forward.
Yeah.
And who cares if anyone else thinks it's corny if it's going to help me move my career forward.
Yeah.
So just do it. Like, I think that you have a voice. I think people want to see what you're up to. So follow YSB Now, guys. Follow me at John Panichella. All of the links for the podcast will be in the description below. And always remember, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I want to say, John, first of all, thank you so much for having me as your first guest. This is an honor. You're one of my favorite people. Like, it's so crazy how much younger than me you are because you've accomplished so much. You have so much more to accomplish. And I always call, like, you're one of my first calls if I need advice in life, but also like in career wise, what I'm doing. Like, you're such a supporter. You're such an amazing friend. And I'm so excited for this podcast. I can't wait to hear for the future episodes. And this has just been an honor. And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. That means so much to me. Guys, thank you for listening. Stay tuned for the next episode. And yeah, I will see you next time.